to New York, to Kentucky and Cincinnati, to Toronto. Yeah. Good morning. Bless you guys. This is the Real Spiel. This is Del K. Brereton, and I'm here. And I got to say it in advance. I put my black card in a safe because I don't want you to take it. I don't want you to take it. The title of this, the full title is The Black Republican, What We Are Afraid to Admit. Not me as a black Republican. What we are afraid to admit about the black Republican. Now, before I get into it, I think we should define the black Republican. The black Republican is a term that specifically targets the United States African American, who his political leanings lean to the Republican Party. Additionally, and this is the part we're afraid to admit, their lifestyle leanings lean to conservatism when it comes to a world view. One of the biggest issues of the black Republican that many of us are afraid to admit is that when they lean right-leaning as being a right-leaning person means you are a Republican, left-leaning means you are a Democrat or a liberal person. But when they lean right, and they lean right on the areas of their conscience, they are not wrong. They are not wrong. And let me explain what I mean. Don't burn me at the stake yet. I'm talking about topics like abortion. I'm talking about the topics like the LGBTQ lobby. The right-leaning Republicans are not proponents of pro-choice, meaning they do not support abortion, and they do not support the LGBTQ community. They do not support their agenda. They do not support their delusionism when it comes to the fluidity of sexuality, of how they deal with in situations in respect to children's sexuality, in respect to their agenda to push the homosexual agenda into every forum, aka religion, education. They do not agree with those things. And so I'm saying very strongly, as a non-Republican, and I'll tell you why I'm a non-Republican, I am definitely on side with the conscious conservatism of their worldviews in those particular two areas. Let's freeze it there. That's what we're afraid of the black Republican. We're afraid that sometimes they're right. This is the other parts we're afraid of with the black Republican. We're afraid of their delusionism. Is that a word? They're afraid of their delusional isms. For example, America is not a racist country. Yes, a black man stood up, I believe, in the Republican convention and declared that America is not a racist country. Now, these are the ones that really scare the heck out of us. Hey! Those are the ones that scare the bejeebers out of me, baby. Because that's delusion. That's delusional to say that sentence. To say that sentence is delusional. That is to not understand how the country was formed. That is to close your eyes on history. That is to misunderstand the current structure of which they exist within. And it's easy for some of them to do that. I believe that the 4 black men in the House of Representatives in America are all representing majority white districts, which means, and I don't know all of them. I know one's South Carolina, I know one's Michigan, I know one's Florida, and I don't know the last one. I forget. It means that a whole lot of white people had to vote for them for those guys to get in. And that would imply two things. One good, one bad. It would imply that, hey, they have the capacity to reach across the color line and to engage white people on issues that would allow them to be voted on, to be voted into that particular office. That's a fantastic accomplishment. The second thing that's scary is how far did they have to reach? How far did they have to reach? What did they sacrifice in respect to their own community? And are they actually representing their own community when they are in the House of Representatives? Because knowingly, they know that majority of their district is white, and white people have to vote for them to put them in there. So will they speak to racial issues that are pro-black? That is the question of their conscience. So the Republican black person is an enigma for us. There's many of them that we cannot stand. Many of us can't stand them. Candace Owens would be one of them. And this goes to my point. Candace Owens is like a broken clock. A broken clock is right twice a day. It's twice a day. That broken clock is correct twice a day. And it actually makes me check my pulse and check whether or not I've been raptured or something's going on with the world when Candace Owens says something that I actually agree with. I get terrified. I get terrified. I'm terrified when that happens. When Candace Owens says something that's actually sounds good, jeepers creepers, where you get them eyes? I don't know. So the thing about life is that in every ideology, you will find areas of which you can say, you know what, that one right there, I'm okay with that one. It's called the 1% rule. The 1% rule. The 1% rule is there is always something that you can sit down at the table with your enemy with and agree with. And you should start building your relationship with your enemy from the 1% rule. That 1% of things that you actually agree with. Sit down and start from there. That's how relationships are built with individuals that you don't agree with. The 1% rule. The black conservative, though, of the current era is in a conundrum. They're in a conundrum because they are stuck between Donald Trump, a white, rich, racist, sorry, you're not getting away with that one, a white, rich, racist ex-president, xenophobic, ignorant, arrogant, a pariah in a sore on the behind of America, yes, and Kamala Harris, a black woman of black, African, and Indian descent, married to a white man, who they allege has prior policies that don't look pro-black, even though she is a member of a black sorority, even though she has gone to an HBCU school in her undergrad. They still have not assigned a permanent black card to her, and it's quite interesting to me because, you know, when does your ethnicity pull up a seat at your politics? When does your race have a say in respect to your politics? Many have gotten to the point where they say, I'm not voting for somebody just because they're black. I don't care. But it would seem that they truly believe that the other side is a better representative for them in the areas of their concern. So another brother in the RNC convention said, we've had the most prosperous economy in my lifetime under President Donald Trump. We have had, said we now, have had the most prosperous economy in our lifetime under Donald Trump. Now, that collective we is very subjective. Who is the we? And we all understand that once you are part of a certain economic class, the color aspect diminishes to some extent. If you're part of the upper class, if you're part of people making mid 6 to 7 figures of income, and you have a president who is, for his own benefits, but regardless, it affects you, is attempting to minimize taxation, to give opportunities to save large portions of that money, and you are utilizing those particular loopholes that he has mentioned, you're gonna feel great. If you have a president who, when he makes statements on Twitter, it affects the stock market in a positive way for you, because you have money invested in a particular side of the stock market, and that happens, and it happens where your stocks do well. Absolutely, you're going to say the same things too. But for the greater whole of the people, for their safety, for the integrity and pride of Americans of all colors, for the middle class, people he made incredible promises to that never came through. We're bringing coal back. We're bringing back the coal. You're bringing back coal in the 21st century, brother. Come on, man. You bring back coal? What are we going to do with coal, bro? What are we going to do with coal? Bringing back coal burning stoves? He lied. He did not deliver in those particular areas. And so and then some people would say, well, the president of the United States cannot affect the bottom line economically of the middle class. You've got to deal with your governors. You've got to deal with your municipal leaders. You got to deal with you got to deal with your large corporations, your multinational corporations, and making deals so that they can come into your areas and come into your cities and give them tax cuts for the building of properties. That is something that has to be done on the municipal level. A good economist might answer me and say that. I understand that. I get it. But to say that the president of the United States does not have a very strong ability to affect the economy of that nation is just disingenuous. It's disingenuous. And Trump did not deliver. And the problem that I have now is that the American dream, for most African Americans who are paying attention, is still an American nightmare. It's still an American nightmare. It is. It really still is an American nightmare. And I have to say it like this too. The American dream, and let's call it the North American dream, is still unfulfilled in Canada as well. And we always say here, and this sounds extremely contradictory, but we're dealing with a larger population and a different culturing of people. We, and me specifically, always say here that a black man of intelligence and the capacity to work and to push himself will always do better in America than he will in Canada. We say it all the time here. We say it all the time. So I have to put that out there. That a black person of intellect, who is hardworking, in a marketplace of 45 million blacks and an economy of 350 million people, Canadian-born, Torontonian, raised black men, we agree in great consensus that if we took our skill sets to the United States of America, we probably would do better economically there. The questions that we have is that what else would we face? We don't have a problem with racist police in the full breadth of our country. We don't have that issue. We have racist police, but we don't see the things that take place in America on a regular basis. We don't see those things here. We just don't. Because the community is not as large. Some of these white people have been very, very, very much cultured around black people. And just how the police are run, how they hire, we don't see it as much. It happens. There's some rednecks running around in every police force in Canada. Absolutely. I've been a policeman. I've met them. I've had to sit down and deal with their behinds. They're here. I'm not saying they're not here, but they cannot actualize their racism in the same way that we see in America. We don't see it as often. We don't see the types of atrocities that are taking place daily. We don't see those things as much here. But the opportunities for black people here, few and far between. And I'm talking about educated black people. I'm talking about black people who have the mindset to change culture. Few and far between do we see that black men and women have the ability to rise up the economic or political ladder and become leaders of industry within the context of corporate Canada. We don't see it. We see it much more in America. We see much more opportunity. But while we now step back into the American giant ocean, where we're talking about Canada's Great Lakes, in a giant ocean of 45 potentially million black people, which is more people than we have in Canada. There's more black people in America than we have people in Canada. The percentages are very skewed, right? It's very skewed. And the black Republican is not looking at those percentages. They're just saying we have successes all over this nation of black people being successful, yes, but at what degree? And you can't look at the shiniest trophy on the shelf. You've got to go and measure the success of black people by the middle class. You got to measure it by the successes in your elementary and public school systems. You've got to measure it by the crime in some of your lower economic neighborhoods. That's how you measure it. You measure what the majority of the people are experiencing as their real life. And I think that's where the black Republican is far removed from an understanding of what is happening at the people level. At the people level. And that is where most people shake their head at them and say, what on earth is this person talking about? Now, we're not going to disagree that some people see racism in everything. Some people see racial bias in every situation. Some people have, it's interesting, but a race entitlement. And race entitlement, I would put it as if you think to yourself, well, I deserve a certain amount of whatever because I'm a black person, because I've gone through this, and because I've gone through that, I deserve this. No, I would never use the word deserve, right? When it comes to anything in respect to the human race. But if your Constitution, if your Charter of Rights affords you certain liberties, then it's not a matter of deserve. Those are inalienable rights. And those inalienable rights that you are promised by your founders have not been accessible always to people of color in America, to the point where it's Main Street and it's Main Street news, baby. It's front end news. We see it all the time. And it's one thing if things happen in obscurity, but from the time that they created videotapes, from the time Rodney King was getting his behind beat till this very moment, everything that has been done to black people over the course of hundreds of years have been now focused intently with a cell phone pointing at it and a video recorder chronicling what's been happening in America. From Trayvon Martin to Orlando Castile. We've been seeing things to George Floyd that have blown our mind. And quite frankly, to declare that there's no no racism in America is to declare that you have had your head buried in the sand of media for most of your doggone life, because it's ridiculous to even think that that concept is true. So the Black Republican, we're still not sure what the heck's going on with you. We're still very terrified at the fact that some of you have risen to positions and still don't see the trees for the forest. And so when we see a Kamala Harris, and again, Kamala's Kamala, right? Barack Obama was a mixed person. He wasn't 100% ethnicity-wise of the black community, but he represented the black community, and we accept him as black. And guess what? The world sees him as black. The world sees him as black. Like I was saying the other day, to most of the white people that were around him, he was Barry. He was Barry. But to us, he was Barack. Right? And Kamala, she dated Montel, and they're trying to say nonsense that she slept her way to the top, and the stuff that people say, I mean, it's incredible. The stuff that people say. When you start bringing out people's bedrooms, and you have the Charlie Weinsteins, and you have all of these other individuals that have slept their way into Hollywood, slept their way into politics, and are still sleeping their way to stay functional and relevant in the world. But you want to bring up a woman who has reached the highest offices of the land. No black woman has ever been the vice president of the United States. No black woman has ever been the vice president of the United States. And the absenteeism of respect, the lack of respect that people in America, both black and white and Latino, have for that woman is atrocious. It's the same ridiculous and disgusting behavior they had, calling Michelle Obama a monkey, calling Michelle Obama a transvestite, saying that she's not a man and she didn't give birth to her children. Disgusting. They should whip people who say things like that. They should be beaten, straight up beaten, flogged. Public floggings should take place. They should drag you and beat you in front of your children and then send you home with a raggedy back. These kinds of behaviors and insults, and you see it. It's part of the fabric that is woven inside of America. It's what I spoke about last night also on both sides with Caitlin Clark. When you see how white people have jumped on how they feel Caitlin Clark is being discriminated against because she's white, and how black people have said Caitlin Clark is just another okay basketball player. She's not a big deal to us. We got better players right now in the WNBA. Why are we focusing on Caitlin Clark? And that divide of just not saying let the girl stand on her own laurels. Don't make it into a racial issue. Don't pull back and forth. Don't try to demonstrate reverse racism. Don't try to demonstrate, oh, there's an implicit bias. Implicit bias doesn't put basketballs in the hoop. Doesn't. It might get you an endorsement deal, but it doesn't put basketballs in the hoop. And what she's doing is her talent and nothing else. And sometimes when the racial coin doesn't flip in the way of black people, we do the same thing. We act up, right? We act up all the time. We do. I've done it. We act up. But the Black Republican is just an enigma that especially coming campaign time, we don't know what to do with, because some of them are so eloquent. Okay, some of y'all are eloquent. We're not talking about you, Herschel Walker. We're not talking about you or that crazy pastor. Some of you guys are eloquent. Some of you guys know how to speak and how to coin a phrase and understand and articulate your thoughts, and we get that. We see you. And some of you are buffoons, absolute buffoons, with your head stuck in the sand. All right. So, but that's the same thing on the Democratic side too. When I see these guys who are, real ninjas, they call themselves, not real. I'm not using the word ninja, but when they're in the hood in a MAGA hat, they're talking about, yeah, I support Donald Trump because I support the individualism. What? Yeah. You know what? In closing, I'll close with this. And I want you to search it. I gotta go find it. It was on Instagram. I'm gonna see if I can link it to this particular video. But there was a speech. Lawrence Fishburne actually read it out on the broadcast that I saw, of an old slaver who had been liberated from slavery, and his old master, asked him to come back, asked him to come on back, and he wrote his master a letter. And this is a famous write. Like, this thing is fantastic. He writes him a letter. He's giving him the accolades and the respect of a gentleman, but he's highlighting his treatment. He's highlighting that, you asked me to come back, but actually the last time I saw you, you were actually shooting at me. He's highlighting that if you really want us to come back and you say that you're going to pay us now and you're going to take care of us, I just want to make sure of a few things before. I want to make sure that, of course, my wife will be treated properly and my daughters. I remember what happened to that other young lady where she was raped by her sons, and I don't want that to happen. I also want to make sure that if you do intend to pay us, I think what you should do is to pay us for the wages that we actually work for when we were your slaves. Send us that money. And then we will be comfortable to know that you're actually going to pay us when we get back. It was such a remarkably put letter. Like, he was so respectful and so satirical. And I'm using that analogy because this is where we are right now. We're in a place, effectively, where you have two parties very culpable in the oppression of black people, and also two parties that have changed their tune when it comes to the empowerment of black people. The Republican Party was the abolitionist party, the party that helped break the back of slavery. But the Democratic Party was the civil rights party, the party that stood for bringing home those inalienable rights that the Emancipation Proclamation did not. And so you have two sides of the American coin that have pledged themselves in different times and in different ways to supporting African American people. And African American people have lined up behind those two sides. But my question to the African American is, when will you line up behind yourself? And if you have the capacity to rid yourself of the slave trappings of being stuck between a master, a master that treats you well, or a master that treated you poorly, when will you break the true chains of those masters and stand on your own 2 feet and declare that this is the party of us? When will you allow yourself not to be demonized and not to have to line up and say that you need to be a good Negro? But when will you really sit up and say, I am going to speak for myself. I won't be a Republican. I won't be a Democrat. I'm going to speak for myself. The Black Independence Party of America. Maybe you should call it that. A party that is a national party, a party that has strong lobby groups, has a super PAC behind you, a party that has teeth, and get yourself some real candidates, intelligent black people. And guess what? You don't even have to just have black people in that party. You can have intelligent Latinos, you can have intelligent Asians, but you know that the agenda of your leader is going to speak to the preponderance of what black people require, need, and want in the United States of America. Black Republicans, we're still afraid of y'all. We don't know what y'all are doing. Sometimes you're making sense, but a lot of times you don't make sense to most of us. And in this particular election, this is no time to roll the dice and put a racist, put an old slaveholder, put an old KKK, son of the KKK, back on the throne of your great republic. That's just my 2 cents. This is Del K. Brereton, and this is The Real Spiel. Black Republican, man, wake up.